Sims looks so good, though. I love this.
Oh, we started already? Didn't even notice that we were doing the countdown, because usually Jordan asks, am I
What a
ready?
loser.
Which I'm always ready. I'm always ready, but I don't know if you're in the same boat as me, Eric. I didn't realize that we had just started the show. Hey, we're sponsored by Underdog today. There's no basketball games tonight, so baseball tonight from 6 to 7. We also got the show going on over on playback. Eric, did you realize that we had started?
Yeah, because I'm a professional and I watch Jordan Klein and his countdowns as opposed to you who neglects him. And now it all makes sense. Now you are the coworker that ignores him, that abuses him. You probably should take accountability for this because this is your fault.
There's only one possible solution for that, and that is photoshopping Eric Lindquist's face on other celebrities. It's the only way that we can move past these sorts of indiscretions. But
shiny new thing, not me. I didn't do it.
It's the most popular thing on the internet. It's all anybody's talking about these days. But we do baseball to hit on today, and we're sponsored, like I said, by Underdog. If you guys haven't checked out Underdog, sign up using the link that we have below in the description box. You get up to a $100 bonus on your first deposit. I would say of the things that are coming up on Underdog that I'm looking forward to the most are some of those playoff best ball contests. Should be really fun. I haven't checked the Underdog lobby, see if those are posted yet, but definitely something as a really cool tournament format that I like a lot over on Underdog. So if you guys want to check out Underdog, sign up using the link we have below. They do have daily contests that you could play over there with drafts. They also have all their best ball stuff over there. You do get up to a $100 bonus on your first deposit when you sign up using our link. Malukar asked, why does it say 18 minutes? I don't know. I don't know what you're looking at, but Eric, how are you doing? How was the weekend?
It was good. It was a good weekend. Yesterday, got a baseball show in with EMAC. Got a NBA show in with Matt Bellman with tons of news, with tons of stuff going on in the NBA streets. So it's nice to have a little bit of a reprieve. Jammed Anthony Davis on Pick 6, on Underdog, on Prize Picks, and all the places. And you know what happened? Anthony Davis is a little wussy. That's what happens. Gets hit in the face. And in the first quarter, he was fine. Just absolutely ducking Rudy Gobert. Just hilarious stuff. I can't even. But hey, shout out my Minnesota Timberwolves, looking really good for the #1 seed. Looking really good.
Yeah, got people in the chat like Cito84 said, what the fuck? No, we can't control it. There's no basketball games on the schedule today. So there's nothing for us to do live before lock-on. There are 0 NBA games tonight. And the reason is because there's the NCAA tournament games. This is something the NBA regularly does at this time of year, is they don't compete with the NCAA tournament. But if you guys have also taken notice, not only is there no NBA regular season slate tonight, there's only a few left overall. So here's the upcoming NBA schedule. We have today, no games. Tomorrow, there's a 14-game slate. Wednesday's an 8-game slate. Thursday, there's a 5-game slate. Friday, another 15-game slate. No game Saturday, and then Sunday is our final NBA regular season slate of the year. So there are only 5 regular season games left, and Sunday is going to be just absolute chaos because it's going to be 10-day contract guys. Most players are going to be sitting their entire regular rotation. So yeah, we really only have a few regular season slates left to play. It was a quick season, was it not?
Yeah, it flew. Beginning April here, things kind of take off in terms of sports. We're going to have the NFL draft at the end of the month. We have MLB that gets going and we start accumulating a sample size. We have the NHL playoffs. We have the NBA playoffs. We have the Masters this week. So there'll be some great opportunities to check out PGA DFS and PGA betting at OddShopper. I mean, there's going to be amazing things going on nonstop here at the beginning of the month, but it is a little bittersweet when you have the NBA and NCAA winding down here in the basketball streets. Cause I don't know, I feel like that's a lot of people who work here. Like that's our our cash cow. Like that's the baby. So losing out on the NBA and the NBA Sims, it's going to be sad to see it go. But as you said, there's a couple of slates here left for the regular season, so we're going to get after it.
And then, of course, there's still going to be the playoff content. And yeah, for Boss Bro in chat said, imagine playing NBA now. I don't know how you even could. There's literally 0 games tonight. So tomorrow, yeah, we're right back at it. Today, though, there is going to be no basketball slate to talk about. Shout out to Chris Williams, who gifted out 5 YouTube memberships. As always, Chris, we appreciate you supporting the channel. And then we've also got a super chat from the Dude Shop 88. He wants to know our favorite plays for MLB tiers. So, yeah, we haven't had one of these super chats for MLB tiers in a little bit here. So let me pull up the MLB tiers and see what kind of lineups
I didn't even look at
construct.
MLB tiers. Again, correlation, that's going to be a big thing when you're talking MLB tiers. You can get some really low owned pieces. So you go about it a little bit differently than the NBA, where it's best projected, best projected, best projected. I think MLB has a little bit more of that game theory to it. So, let me pull it up here. I haven't looked at it at all.
Yep, that's what I just did. I went ahead and pulled it up, and I'm just going to scan through the different tiers to see what kind of correlation we could potentially get in it. And well, the first tier is very heavy Dodgers players. Second tier is a little bit spread out. It's actually going to be pretty hard to, just at first glance here, Eric, it is a little hard to stack for tiers. They've kind of grouped players from the same teams in the same tiers.
Yeah, it's brutal. That's not ideal. That's not great. Not my favorite thing, but we got a 3K knuckleball, $5 for 1K to first. I'll fire one. Let's do this.
All right, so let's build it out right here. And let's start by going through our favorite options in each tier. And then maybe we could circle back to see if there's any specific stacking angles we like. But it doesn't really look like you could really aggressively stack. We've seen a lot of times where you could do, 2, 3, 4 players from the same team, but not necessarily something that you could do for this particular slate. So with that in mind, tier 1, give me Ronald Acuna going up against Julio Teheran. We got 3 Dodgers players in this tier: Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman. But Acuna, while I know that Betts is off to a crazy good start, Acuna last year is by far the best fantasy producer that we had of anybody at any position due to his power and stolen base upside. He also draws a matchup against Julio Teheran, which is better than the matchup any of the Dodgers guys have against Bailey Ober. So Acuna for me in tier 1, but what are you seeing?
Yeah, I'm with you. I talked about it last night on the Lindy show, where I didn't care that it was going to be the most square play in the history of square plays. Like in a field of squares, it was the squarest of the square. But like Atlanta -1.5 against Tehran with Morton on the mound, and overall just anything that has to do with hitting in this game against Tehran, one of the worst starters in baseball. Yeah, give me that. That's great.
Then for tier 2 also fairly spread out with different players to choose from. No correlation with Ronald Acuna in tier 1. Well, actually, never mind. I take that back. Matt Olson's in tier 2. I missed that there. So yeah, give me Matt Olson in tier 2 to pair with Ronald Acuna.
Matt Olson, pretty straightforward there.
Yeah, you got Yordan Alvarez a strong consideration as well. But when you get so many elite hitters in tier 2, give me the guy who not only is in a great matchup in Matt Olson, but also correlates with Acuna for us. We can make a little bit of a stack there. So tier 2. Oh, you know what? Now as I'm looking through this, we actually can build out a Brave stack here. So in tier 3, we do have decisions to make, though, because we got the Diamondbacks playing in Coors Field there. Or we go with Austin Riley, who correlates with some of our guys that we put together in the first couple of tiers. So with that in mind, are you going to go to one of the Coors Field bats here? Or do we go to Austin Riley for more correlation?
I will go to the Riley side of things.
Yeah, I'm going to say Riley as well. There's, no other Diamondbacks players we get. So let's go with Austin Riley in tier 3. Oh boy, we can actually build a pretty aggressive Diamondback stack here. So tier 4, here's a couple of different ways I think you could play tier 4. Ozzy Albies to give us the bigger Brave stack from what we've had. But in tier 2, there was also Yordan Alvarez. So another potential combination, you go to Yordan Alvarez in tier 2 and Jose Altuve in tier 4 for more correlation. So I think that's one way you could build your lineup. But considering the players we've already given out here, Albies would make the most sense in this tier.
Samesies.
All right. Now, finally, tier 5. Tier 5, we don't have any other Astros players, no Braves to go to. So give me Christian Walker in Coors Field against Kyle Freeland.
Yep. There's your one-off. You have to play somebody else from a different spot. Christian Walker, Yahtzee.
And now finally for tier 6, give me Marcell Ozuna against
Yep.
Julio Teheran to pair with the other players here. Although you could also, if you decided to go with an Astros stack where you could go Astros Braves, you could also plug Bregman in here with Altuve and Yordan Alvarez.
These are all good things.
And that is going to do it for us for tiers. Thank you very much for the super chat there. The Dude Shop 88, we do appreciate it. And also, for anyone who's watching along in Discord, don't forget, you can ask us questions over the course of the show. And we do answer any questions that our customers give us in the Discord channel. And a couple of ones that are coming in here. First, from Hey, I'm Drew 95. He says, tell Eric that I'm sorry about the finals loss yesterday. All right. Hey, I'm Drew. He's apologized. Maybe is he responsible for Iowa losing in some way? I don't know.
I didn't go to Iowa, so I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
I assume that's what he's apologizing for, though.
Oh, no, I bet South Carolina. I was very much cheering against Iowa. I
right,
said
well,
I said yesterday, I think on the NBA show and the MLB show, that it was a goat whale galaxy play. It started at noon. It was just phenomenal stuff. South Carolina with the easy cover against a bunch of children from Iowa. They breed them different in South Carolina, a lot bigger, a lot better. They're undefeated for a reason. That line made no sense to me.
And the other part of Hey, I'm Drew's question is, other than DK cash plays for pitchers and stacks for later in the show. Yes. So if we are talking about cash, let's start by talking about the pitchers here. And I know that Hey, I'm Drew plays over on DraftKings, and pretty big slate. No real weather concerns for today. Nothing that's making me leave games out of my player pool or take stuff out of the contest generator or anything. But who are the two pitchers you'd be looking at in a cash game for tonight on DK?
It's pretty easy. I think you're getting Blake Snell. That's the first guy in. And then actually the second guy isn't as easy. I think your two paths, you go to Jose Barrios and just kind of eat that chalk. I'm not a big Jose Barrios fan. I've never have been. I never will be. But 7,100 with a bunch of unknowns, I think he looks all right. I think this is a spot against Seattle where you're at least going to be generating swing and miss. I mean, you look at some of the numbers for Seattle so far this season. They are number one in strikeouts against right-handed pitching, 31.6% K rate. It's only 282 plate appearances. We're still generating sample size, and they are in a very pitcher-friendly ballpark generally when they're at home in Seattle. But here on the road in Toronto, should still kind of bring that strikeout stuff. So I think that at least builds a little bit of a floor for Barrios, where I think he'd be the SP2 for cash.
For people in chat, because I am seeing a handful of questions come. There are no NBA games today, so that's why this is not NBA Live Before Lock. Not because we decided not to talk about it, but because there isn't an NBA slate. There's 0 games today.
Tell me you don't play NBA DFS and just troll me without telling me that you're not playing NBA DFS and just trolling me.
It is. I'm honestly not sure, though. Some of the people that are watching, I'm sure there are some people trolling in chat. But I also get the sense there's some people who don't know that there aren't NBA games today, which I'm also confused by how you built lineups. But that aside,
that Josh Engelman coming in on the Stochastic DFS account, where's NBA show? Stop it. Not now. Don't do this. Not now.
Let's see what else we have here from, and it could be Josh too. Josh is confused why he isn't working right now. He's like, hey, I've spent a considerable amount of time at a T-Pain concert, which was disappointing. He's trying to make the money back. He wants to know how he could work today. So Josh trying to play NBA DFS, but there's no slate. No slate. Yeah, I think Zach, you're going to play Zach Gallen not Zach Gallen, Blake Snell in cash. Zach Gallen's the second most popular pitcher on the slate in our ownership projections, but I mean, I'm pretty hesitant in cash to play a Coors Field pitcher. So it gets really tricky behind that. I'm going to say Jose Barrios for the savings, just to allow yourself to get to more exposure to Coors Field for cash games. But it's hard to feel good about anybody behind Blake Snell. And it kind of seems like you were on the same page as me when it comes to building a cash game lineup.
Yep, that's everything I just said. So we're on the same page.
Hey, I'm Drew follows up to say that he was referencing you looking like Caitlin Clark. Makes sense. Makes sense.
Thanks. Good one. Hilarious, in fact.
It is true that they look very much alike.
You're such a dipshit.
BBC. Oh, you haven't done very many baseball shows with me yet, so you don't know about our guy in chat. But we've got
Heard about it.
BBC in Mouth 8. BBC in Mouth 8 from our Discord channel says, what pitcher tonight is going to make us nut? Which pitcher will make us edge? And which pitcher will give us ED like Eric?
I don't have ED. I'm very functional. Thank you very much for asking.
This is BBC in mouth 8, which, as I point out, because the first 7 were already taken, so we had to settle on 8. And according to him, you have ED and he's a paying customer. So I tend to think that he is correct. And who knows what kind of personal experiences he may have had watching you through a window or something along those lines. So, Eric, for the purposes of this question, you have ED. Which pitcher is going to make you nut today? Which pitcher is going to make you edge? And which pitcher is going to give you ED? All right. So let's think of it as safest pitcher, tournament pitcher with upside, and a pitcher to fade.
Blake Snell, safest pitcher. Actually, Yu Darvish is pretty close too. Yu Darvish.
I'm very concerned about the pitch count of Blake Snell.
Yeah, I keep going back and forth, but he had 60 pitches in a simulated game on the 17th. He had 70 in a simulated game a week later. I don't know what to make of that, but I know that he had like another session ramping up into it. I think 85 is on the table. Again, it's not that I think he's safe. I mean, you look at our top 2 pitchers percentage that we have in the top pitchers tool. What I think is he's probably the guy that has the best pitching stuff plus matchup plus ballpark. And the pitch count agnostic, like I do think Blake Snell, you said safe, and I feel like I'd be playing him in cash. So amongst these pitchers on this slate, I think that the ownership is probably where I'm getting safe from. I view safe for me. I know the Cubs can be a devastating matchup, but like Yu Darvish feels like he can go the furthest. He's now had 3 starts to everybody else's 1 or 2. And 8,400 for him, I would call him like the guy that I'm currently getting 25% of, and I'm just fine with that. I have one guy that makes me very, very uncomfortable that I'm playing. And so I don't know if he can go in the edge category because I'm not exactly going to nut from it or whatever the fuck we're talking about.
Well, I mean, if he get you there, that's impressive with your ED issues. So for me, I mean, I'm going to say Blake Snell by default as the safest pitcher, but I'm well underweight to the field to him in tournaments just because I am very sketched out by what his potential pitch count could be today. There's a scenario where we only get 5 innings out of Blake Snell, and it kind of, we might only pitch 4 innings, and it really limits his upside. So just because the field is all getting there, it does make me want to be underweight to the field in tournaments. But as far as safe play, I'm going to go with Blake Snell. Tournament play, that is going to be Yu Darvish for me, who's currently my most rostered pitcher.
Look at us.
Tournaments. And pitcher who
also like Turnbull a lot Eric. Today. I like Turnbull. It's the guy that's uncomfortable, but there's a new pitch that we'll talk about, and there's some interest that I have where it's like, oh, this could take a while for baseball to figure out.
Zach Gallen is the 2nd most popular pitcher on the slate pitching in Coors Field. I mean, it's the Colorado Rockies, and I certainly think this is a team that's going to be, if not the worst team in the league against right-hand pitching by WRC plus at the end of the year. At worst, they'll be bottom 5. And I usually look at pitchers going up against the Colorado Rockies in Coors Field and say, this offense is terrible. There's upside for right-hand pitching going against them, but never to the point where I want to play a chalk pitcher against them in Coors Field. So just based on the ownership of Gallen, I would prefer to be a little bit more so on the Rocky side in a Coors Field game. So I will say Zach Gallen is a pitcher to give me ED like Eric.
Dear God.
Next question here. Einsteinium says that he has Snell in 20% of his lineups. Do we think he comes in higher? Yeah, we have Snell projected for like nearly 40% or mid 30% ownership. So I do think he comes in well over 20%.
I do too.
Yeah, so it looks like based on our ownership projections that Snell is going to be the chalk. And just because pitching is so iffy today, and not just today, it's kind of been the case the entire season. We've got Snell projected for 33% ownership. I'll refresh this to see if anything has changed. Oh, yeah, it actually has. So we just ran an ownership update. Snell is now 19.6% owned. That changed.
That makes way more sense.
Yeah. Before the show started, we had Snell projected for over 30% ownership. So with this recent ownership update, it actually changes how I view Blake Snell a pretty good amount.
Yeah, you should probably want to play more Blake Snell. I mean, Yu Darvish is now the highest owned pitcher here. I mean, there's a case Yu Darvish, Jose Barrios end up being the guys. For me, it was just trying to find, if you're going to have Blake Snell at a 33.5% top 2 pitcher percentage, it's really hard for me still not to say I would go anywhere else in cash. Like, I still think I'd be going to Snell over Darvish there. But Darvish does have a great ballpark. There are some strikeouts in the Cubs lineup. that, despite the power concerns that you might have with some of those bats. And then Barrios, I just think makes sense as opposed to Gallen. Miles Michaelis, I would rather eat paint than play him in cash. And then Blake Snell, there is that.
Yeah, and I'm going to have to rerun my lineups through the contest generator now that we've got this big update to Blake Snell, because yeah, it makes a massive difference when he is now projected for way less ownership than he was before. Because somebody who, like mentioned before, I thought Blake Snell certainly made sense for cash games. For tournaments, I was like, on a slate of this size, I don't want to play Blake Snell nearly as much as the field when he's going to be in a third of the field's lineups. I feel different now considering what his updated ownership projection is. But Eric, if you are spending up for a pitcher today, and let's group all of the guys who are 9K or higher together: Blake Snell, Charlie Morton, Luis Castillo, Zach Eflin. Of those four pitchers, do you have a priority for tournaments?
Yeah, for tournaments, I'm going to be getting to quite a bit of Zach Eflin going up against the Angels. Again, this is just kind of looking at the strikeout profile of the Angels so far against righties. 262 plate appearances, 25.6% K rate. That's at 8th highest in baseball. You've got some other options for sure, but Eflin did not look good in that first start. There's just one start. We are accumulating sample size, and everybody wants to act like they know something. I mean, yesterday talked about Dean Kremer ad nauseum, and it's like, oh, you can't play Dean Kremer. Yeah, you absolutely could. And that was on the cheaper, and obviously with a lot of unknowns. I think in this spot specifically, you talk about a guy in Zach Eflin who had an unbelievable year last year. The swing and miss wasn't there for one start. We're generating some sample size here with some of these guys, but a 3.02 expected ERA last season was elite to go with a career high 26.5% K rate. He gets an Angels matchup. Not a great ballpark. There are some concerning guys there, but again, you're looking at tournament winning upside, and I think the Angels are a team that are going to strike out a lot, probably going to be a top 5 team in baseball to target when it comes to right-handed pitching. Like, you're going to want to roster righties against them, I think, going forward. There's just no lefty power whatsoever that exists in this lineup absent Shohei Ohtani. So it is definitely going to be an upgraded spot for me here to target them this season.
Yeah, so on the high end of pitching, there isn't really a priority for me. If I had to be one guy now, it's probably going to be Blake Snell. But with that said, I prefer to get a little bit cheaper at pitching. A big part of that is because of how much I'm going to be prioritizing the Coors Field game, and also the fact that I'm just a little sketched out by the pitch count of Blake Snell. I will be a little bit close to the field now because I had him in 11% of lineups and he's projected for like 35% ownership. So now that his ownership has come down, that probably gets me closer to the field on Blake Snell. But I really prefer getting to the mid-range pitchers today and then kind of spreading out, because I do think there's a lot of guys in this range that have a lot of upside, Eric. My favorite amongst them is Yu Darvish. You had talked about before, and it's when it comes to Yu Darvish, the matchup clearly isn't ideal for him in any kind of way, but Darvish has just consistently been a really quality pitcher with strikeout upside. And one other thing that's always been nice about Yu Darvish, no matter which team he's been on, it doesn't matter which part of the season is, he's always gotten a really long leash. And that's kind of like a hidden upside in some of these pitchers where you don't necessarily have to have a 30% strikeout rate to have a lot of upside. If you're able to pitch an extra inning, extra 2 innings compared to other pitchers in the league, that's going to give you a little bit of extra leash to score extra fantasy points. And so far to open up the year, a lot of really positive results for Yu Darvish, not just the 2.6 ERA and the 3.6 expected ERA. The strikeout stuff has been good. The velocity really strong as well. Even at 37 years old, 94.5 average miles per hour on the fastball for Yu Darvish. He's the pitcher I'm getting to a ton right now.
Yep, I said he's the guy that I think if you're talking about, let's go back to edging. That sounds great, right? Feel good about Yu Darvish here in this spot. Blake Snell coming down in ownership is probably not ideal for me, where I'm going to now be investing a little bit more up top there just to find out. 10-3, we know the strikeout stuff. And last year, I was pretty adamant to not roster Blake Snell at the beginning of the season. I went and watched him pitch in Arizona for a couple of starts, and he looked awful against like the quad A version of the Seattle team. Didn't get out of a first inning. Didn't really have it to start off the beginning of the year, and then you started to see the changes. Maybe he needs a little while to get the wheels sputtering again this year. I don't know, but I do know that this guy at the tail end of last year was unhittable, just absolutely unhittable with some of the best strikeout stuff in baseball. So considering his ownership just came down, Blake Snell, probably somebody who's going to eat up more of my lineups than what he was before. I was right around what I thought the field was going to be at 28%. Now it probably takes even a little bit more of a jump up because we still have that 33.5% top two pitcher percentage. But Eflin for me, 16% ownership. I've got 22% of. I had 25% of Darvish in that last run. Maybe I get a little bit more of him now, kind of hearing that you're on board with me.
Yeah, Darvish, he was in 36% of my lineups on last run. I'm updating it for the updated ownership and seeing where that impacts where guys land in the contest generator. But yeah, Darvish was my most rostered pitcher on my last run. And I assume that's probably going to be the case on the next run that I do as well. And then I want to ask, in large field tournaments, how are you going to handle Zach Gallen, who, if you just look at the talent of the pitchers on the slate, he's up there. He's as good as any other pitcher that we have. There are some concerning signs in the early portion of the season. His velocity is down compared to last year, which I think could be attributed to a couple of different things. Pitched extra innings last year. That's a potential concern. Then there's also just the start of the year where pitchers are maybe not quite as loose with their arm as they would be in the middle part of the season. It's a great matchup for him in terms of the Rockies offense is terrible against right-hand pitching, but it's also a game in Coors Field. So we now have Zach Allen projected for 21% ownership, making him one of the most popular pitchers on the slate, Eric. How are you going to weigh the talent of Zach Allen, the lack of talent with the Rockies, the ballpark? Where does it ultimately have you landing on Zach Allen?
Pretty neutral. I love Zach Allen. Anybody who's followed my stuff for the last couple of years knows that I mean, when Arizona was terrible 2 years ago, we were still betting every single Zach Gallen, almost every single Merrill Kelly start, especially against the Dodgers, especially against the road where you're getting 2-1 on one of, I thought, the best pitchers in baseball or emerging best pitchers in baseball. He does have that hard hit that freaks you out a little bit from last year, 46.2%. It has been the same now through two starts, 46.4%, 4.78 expected ERA. But again, it is going to be neutral for me purely because we know Colorado, how bad this lineup is going to be. We saw it last season at home. There wasn't a huge leg up for them. 270 plate appearances basically so far this season, 79 WRC plus, and a 26% K rate, seventh highest in baseball against right-handed pitching. So for me, I'm just going to kind of be sitting right at the field, not making any kind of a large stand on him. I have two pitchers on the cheap end that I'm making larger stands with for sure. So Zach Gallen, he's not going to really make or break my day, I don't think.
So let me know who those pitchers on the low end that you're taking stands on. I have a couple of guesses, is it like, are these pitchers I wouldn't be able to guess? Is it like crazy out of the ordinary?
No. It's nobody that's, let me just see what the ownership is ranked. So not Freeland, not Tehran, not Assad, and we'll stop there. Those are the three guys off the board for you.
Okay. All right. So I could at least take some solace in knowing that it isn't like Kyle Freeland. Because if it was Kyle Freeland, like no. I'm never going to guess that. So
no, and also you're never going to have me on an MLB DFS show ever again. So that's good.
Let's see.
One, I have 20. So, I mean, it kind of seems like the magic number I'm getting to today. It's like right around 20% on both of these guys. One, that's going to put him just over 2x. And then the other guy, it's going to put me well above.
Okay. So I think
he's going to be lower owned than
Jose Barrios and Spencer Turnbull.
Nope. So Spencer Turnbull is one. We'll start with him. It's not a new sweeper for what it's worth. I saw somebody in the chat put that he didn't have this pitcher, that it's a brand new pitch. It's new in terms of like what it's capable of doing. And you go to the vertical break section of Savant, or you start looking at some of these pitchers. And for me, again, I try to bet pretty light at the beginning of the year because you never know how the ball is going to react. You never really know exactly like pitchers. We have kind of these preconceived notions about who guys are or who they aren't. And Spencer Turnbull was a guy that I really was kind of thrown back when I went through his box score yesterday, seeing, I don't know how I missed it. I don't know. I must not have been playing on that slate, but I just saw the 7 strikeouts, no earned against the Reds, and had to take a look at what was going on. He has so much more vertical movement on all of his primary pitches. So the sinker, the sweeper that we're talking about here as well, it's just moving a lot more. We have the curveball. That's up nearly 1.1 inches of vertical movement, and the changeup up 1.8 average inches of vertical movement. So a great opportunity, I think, to be early to the party on somebody who might, again, I'm just going to put an asterisk next to a lot of these guys. He might be a revamped, retooled pitcher with this pitch that just seems to be something he's more confident in. He's also gotten rid of by far his most ineffective pitch, which was the slider in 2023. So as I started breaking down his pitch mix and started looking at what he was successful with in that first start, I don't think Cincinnati is going to be a negative matchup. I think they're going to strike out quite a bit here as well this season. But I think Turnbull going up against a Cardinals team that just they have Wilson Contreras, I think that I saw got scratched. They're going to have an opportunity to strike out a 27.1% K rate against righties in 284 plate appearances and just an 81 WRC plus. This might be a very bad baseball team going forward this season. They weren't exactly good last year. I think that might have carried over. So Turnbull, I think, is an awesome investment today.
Yeah, so for me, it's fun. I've been making fun of people who have been just jamming chalk pitchers against the Seattle Mariners because I mean, like the ownership against the Mariners has been out of hand to this point this season. It's like every single day you look at the projected ownership. It's like, hey, look, another pitcher's 35% owned against the Seattle Mariners. For today, though, with Jose Barrios, who's been a guy that you and I have not been particularly high on in the past, Eric, and I have a bet on the under for strikeouts today. But the reason I bet on the under for strikeouts because it opened up at 6.5, which was a very, very high mark. The Seattle Mariners are a team that strikes out a lot against right-hand pitching. And while Jose Barrios has not had the best strikeout results to open the year, I don't know if it matters as much at his DraftKings price point as an SP2. So the cheap pitcher that I'm landing on the most is Barrios, projected for ownership right now, right around 20%. So it's high compared to some other pitchers on the slate, but it's not like anything that's crazy chalk or anything like that. So for me, I'm going to be on Jose Barrios, mostly because of the price point and the fact that it is a matchup that has some strikeout upside. So that's the punt option that I am finding myself getting to the most.
All right, ready to hold the nose and get the Bailey Ober, why I have him in 20-something% of my lineups right now.
All right, tell me why you're playing Bailey Ober against the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Because I like pain and suffering, but also Bailey Ober did not have a very good first start. Tons of fly balls, no ground ball. He is a fly ball pitcher in general, 35.2% fly ball rate in 2023. This is a feast or famine type spot, no doubt about it. But the fastball velo, I think we're going to see that be just fine. I mean, he was an effective pitcher in 2023 with just right around a 92, 91.5 mile per hour fastball. So I'm looking through the mix here, slider, changeup, curveball. This is a Dodgers team that there is no question how freaking good they are. They're incredible. But if you group it by K rate here in terms of like the top 10 against righties, they're the only team inside of that top 10. So 1 through 9, they're the only team with a better than 100 WRC plus, and they're at 129, but they carry a 26.6% K rate in 290 plate appearances against righties. So the back half of this lineup, if you can survive the top, if you can get a couple of Ks from the likes of a Shohei, from the likes of a Mookie Betts unexpectedly, like there are ways that I think Bailey Ober can be a very low-owned tournament dart. I see 9% ownership on him. I would be floored, shocked, completely appalled, actually, if he was actually 9% in some single entry or 3 max. And I think he's just fine. It was a terrible start. It's early in the season. And this is just like the don't overreact to one game of sample size. Now, I'll definitely have some Dodgers because the Dodgers on this slate aren't like getting crazy amount of ownership. We have Arizona playing in Coors. We have Colorado in Coors, obviously, too. So a Coors Field game and Atlanta on any slate. I think the Dodgers are going to come in low-owned, too. But I like a low-owned Bailey Ober here.
That was not what I was expecting you to say.
I know.
Not that I had a real, I wasn't sure because your hint was like, it's not Kyle Freeland. So I was like, all right, it's not Kyle Freeland. It's got to be something else weird though. Because if you did preface it by saying it's not the guy who's probably the worst pitcher on the slate, it's like, well, it has to be somebody else. Not all that particularly great. Let me see if I have any Ober lineups. I have a couple. I do have a couple Ober lineups, probably less than what you do, but I did get to him in some spots in my player pool. One thing I want to ask you about as well is there's been a tremendous amount of variance with pitching, and baseball DFS, while it has a lot of variance, typically pitcher is the one spot where it does offer some sort of security. That hasn't been the case this year. There's been a lot of pitcher injuries. The talent pool also is just not all that high at pitcher, so you've had a lot of weird results. I actually do think that this is a season that looks like it's setting up to take more weird stands at pitcher than on other slates in previous years.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at with it, where if everybody is going to go to Barrios, where, again, I think this is a good spot. Seattle is probably going to be the team that we get at the end of the year. Them, Cincinnati, 1-2. I would be shocked if one of those two teams didn't have the most strikeouts against right-handed pitching based on the way those right-handed hitters that they have to have in the lineups profile against righties. They're just going to strike out an absolute metric ton. I think Cincinnati, we have the 194 ISO for them. They have the ballpark upgrade. They're probably going to get by a little bit. Seattle at times, again, I like the team. I think they're going to be very live in the AL with the pitching staff that they have, but they are definitely targetable. But at this kind of ownership with a pitcher that I'm already a little bit down on, there was no way coming into this slate that I was actually going to be rostering Jose Barrios at where the field was going to be, especially if he's going to be the second most popular. Not that I think he's a bad play by any means. 7,100, I would definitely have him in cash if I were playing cash today, but a pretty concerted effort to get to other pieces in the range. And Bailey Ober, it feels awful, but like sometimes in baseball, it should feel awful in order to get different.
Shout out to Marcos Amparo. Nice little pun from him in chat. He said, Eric's night is going to be Ober quick. Yeah, I'm sure that Eric's even aware how this could go south very, very quickly.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, last time I heard that, I fell off my dinosaur. But like legitimately, no shit. It's the Dodgers. I'm not trying to make some kind of a case. And not only that, but Bailey Ober has a 1.297 expected slugging, a 58.3% hard hit in that first outing, 41.7% barrel percentage right out of the gate. He had 5 barrels in 12 batted balls. Do you know how bad that is? That is insanely bad. And now he's facing the best offense in baseball, but the weather's decent for pitching. It's definitely going to be something where Bailey Ober cannot possibly pitch worse because, well, I've seen this guy before. He's a big lug, 6'9", with no velocity, and it's weird to watch, but he does generate swing and miss. He does have that capability. 25.3% K rate in 21 and 23. I feel as though this is one of those spots in tournaments where you want to look for a different pitcher. Bailey Ober can be that guy because I think everything looks just fine and like on par with what it did last season, so I'll embrace the variance.
Yeah, I have let's see, 5% of Bailey Ober. That's actually less than what the field is projected for. The field is expected to get to a little bit more than that, but either way, I've got some lineups with Bailey Ober in them. Let's see what else we have as far as questions coming into Discord. We got some questions about stacks. Another question. Yeah, so some stack questions. So we'll move on to that in a second here. I want to make sure we talk about the FanDuel pitchers as well, though, before we move on, because pitching can be a little bit different at FanDuel. And for tournaments, we've got Blake Snell projected to be the most popular pitcher on FanDuel. And it is hard for me to get behind that when you consider how important things like the win bonus and the quality start are on FanDuel. If Blake Snell is really going to hold this 20% ownership until lock, which I assume is going to be the case because we only got 20 minutes left to go here until lock, I'd rather go elsewhere in tournaments. In particular, I like looking at Charlie Morton for FanDuel on tournaments. Great matchup against the New York Mets. And also, when you're talking about just kind of like overall safety and security, the Braves at home against the Mets, who've just been terrible so far this year, it does seem like Charlie Morton, one of the more likely pitchers to pick up the win bonus as well as the quality start bonus today. And he's only projected for 7% ownership, so he's a third of the ownership of Blake Snell. So if I'm paying up for a pitcher on FanDuel in tournaments, give me Charlie Morton. For yourself, Eric, who's your favorite tournament pitcher on FanDuel, or maybe do you feel differently about me than Blake Snell?
Spencer Turnbull, he's got the third most ownership, but that's still, I don't think, enough. Again, I do think if this pitch and the vertical movement on some of these pitches holds, there's a chance for him to be like a 9-10 strikeout per 9 guy in a guy, like one aside. Like there's a legitimate chance for like 32-ish percent K rate this season, like, which is insane because Spencer Turnbull, Detroit ruins everything if we're going to be serious, but like Spencer Turnbull, that was so ridiculous. And the changes in this vertical movement is so pronounced with that sweeper that I kind of have to take note of it. He had 83 pitches against Cincinnati in that first outing as well. Induced 7 ground balls to just 2 fly balls. Like across the board, whether you look at surface stats or you're looking at, some of the underlying metrics, like everything looked awesome. So I would be willing to roll that out considering there's going to be Blake Snell pulling more ownership and somehow Tyler Anderson, who I did back in terms of under 2.5 earned runs allowed. And I do think he can pitch deep enough into this one. Doesn't have the kind of strikeout upside that I'd be looking for on a one pitcher site. He would kind of need the 6 innings to make it worth my while on FanDuel. So strongly prefer going Turnbull. And then Charlie Morton's a pitcher we haven't even talked about. The Mets have been egregious here so far to start the season. They're going to be about neutral, I think, in terms of strikeout rate. They have been thus far this season against righties at 23.1%. But I think for FanDuel purposes, Charlie Morton would be a little bit more appealing to me than on DK, where kind of prefer other target other players in that range, if you will.
Yeah. Hey, no disagreement from me. I'd say Morton's my favorite
Yeah.
FanDuel pitcher. I do think he brings a good amount of security to the table. So Charlie Morton on FanDuel, definitely somebody who I like getting behind. People in the chat want to know about Blair Henley, who's going to be starting
Yeah.
at the flat min for the Houston Astros. So we are going to hit on that in a second. Although first, we did also get a question from, who was it in chat? Got to pull it back up. It was Einstein. He wants to know, do we have any interest in Paxton tonight? He's very neutral looking to me. I'm about even with the field. That's exactly what our top pitchers tool implies as well, with 13% ownership, 11% chance to be one of the top 2 scoring pitchers. I'm right around 10% owned on Paxton. He's not somebody I have any kind of real stand on. As far as Blair Henley goes, I mean, he's very cheap at 4K. It's just, what does that savings really get you? So I have him in a couple of lineups, and I was just searching to see who he's paired with. So I have him in some lineups where, like, I'm paying up for the Diamondbacks. I wouldn't prioritize Blair Henley, though. I'm skeptical he's going to go very deep into the game, and I'm also skeptical that he isn't just going to get lit on fire by the Rangers.
Yeah, so he did have 6 strikeouts in his first AAA start, for what it's worth. Blair Henley did. So that's there. He went 5 innings pitched. I was just trying to get a pitch count here for it specifically, but this guy came from obscurity. He was not on the spring training roster. He doesn't have anything listed in Savant or anywhere else for that. So you basically have his rookie and A-ball type stats to work off of. Slow progression here for him up the ranks. He's 26. Hasn't really had a crack at anything here, but I think the stuff might have looked just good enough. But in that start at AAA, 5.22 xFIP, he had a 4.57 xFIP at AA last season. So in terms of getting lit on fire, I am totally on board with that for you. I was going to make, I don't know what our Nuke of the Night segment's going to be for baseball or thinking something of that sort here, but I will say that I like Texas more as a stack than what I like getting to Arizona against Freeland today.
Yeah, it is. It's Dong Picks. Dong Picks is the biggest one. We could
Oh,
have other things we work in as we go here, but yeah. Anything else you want to talk about at pitcher? If not, Jordan, you can pull up the lineup generator and we'll build some MLB lineups out.
let's do it.
All right. So Jordan, pull up the lineup generator. We'll look at some lineups. And as far as your preferred setting, Eric, we got a big slate today, right? There's a lot of teams that are playing. Is there a particular, and go all stack types here, Jordan. So go all stack types. Do you want to build balanced, chalky, or contrarian lineups?
Let's get freaky naughty. We're playing in the $3, that 47,000 person tournament. I would very much like to build a little bit of contrarian, but let's go balance. Let's kind of find a nice middle ground here. See what it's spitting out for us first.
And if you guys want to sign up for the lineup generator, you can sign up using the link we have below. It is the most affordable tool that we have here at Stokastic.com, less than $15. It is going to build lineups for you, but also you could customize those lineups. There are some inputs here. You could lock players if you want, which don't do that for the purpose of this, Jordan. You could skip locking players, but you could skip players. If there's lineups you like, you could save them. Other lineups you don't like, you could discard them. And then also you could change some of the individual players in those lineups. So if you want to make some of your own adjustments using our player projection or ownership projections, which are in here, you can do that as well. But yeah, save a bunch of these, Jordan. I want to see just the overall pool of exposures that we're getting to. And also, if you guys sign up, that is also going to grant you access to the Discord channel. So you could ask us questions whenever you want throughout the day or on Live Before Locks, anything along those lines. Get Discord access when you sign up for any package here at Stokastic. So let's see. We're getting to a whole lot of Blake Snell. I've less than the 50% of Blake Snell there. Jose Barrios, he's in about half of lineups. One thing that really stands out to me here, Eric, a ton of Diamondbacks, and that really mirrors what I'm doing with my lineups as well. I'm getting to a bunch of Diamondbacks hitters, not only as a primary stack, by far my most rostered primary stack, but also a lot of secondary stacks with the Arizona Diamondbacks. A lot of the individual hitters are my most rostered hitters on the team. So it's, for me, a lot of Diamondback stacks. And then beyond that, kind of spreading out my pitcher exposure. If you look at the lineups here, we're getting to 37% of the Rangers, which just kind of echoes some of your sentiments about liking Texas. But Eric, a lot of Diamondbacks exposure here. What are you going to be doing with a popular Arizona stack?
I am going to be playing them. I'm going to be playing Texas, it would appear, as a primary stack a little bit more. Kind of talked about some of the Blair Henley situations. I was going to have a lot of interest with them against Framber Valdez, who, yeah, we've seen the ground ball rate get back over 70% here, but anywho, doesn't really do us anything to talk about it here now after the fact. But Blair Henley, this is an obvious matchup upgrade in just about every sense of the word. again, you go back to some of these AAA numbers that you had for him, 4.57 xFIP here at AA in 2023 for Houston. This is a spot start. I could see a situation where, there might be some swing and miss stuff, where there might be an opportunity for him to get really, really lucky in that department. It is baseball after all. So at 4K, maybe I wrote him off a little too quick after going through some of his stuff. But even in that first outing, 5.22 xFIP, he survived just by getting some swing and miss, still gave up 2 home runs. This is a very ridiculous, potent Texas squad. So I'm going to have ever so slightly more of them as a primary here. But Arizona, they're no doubt in a phenomenal spot. Didn't mean to like undersell how much I like them against Kyle Freeland. It's simply me getting to a little bit more Texas.
Yeah, there are 4 offenses I have double-digit exposure to. The Diamondbacks being the leader of that bunch. They're in just over 20% of my lineups, actually mid-20% exposure. Like a fourth of my lineups are going to be Diamondback stacks here. And then I'll get to some of the other teams I like. One of the other teams I have double-digit exposure to, Eric, it is also the Texas Rangers. So 2 out of the 4 teams I'm getting to the most, Texas Rangers, Arizona Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks are going to be popular, but I don't think they're popular enough. And this is something we see a good amount on some of these Coors Field slates that are very significant size, where even though they do have the most projected ownership, 16.1% as a team, we have them with a 17.1% chance in the top stack stool being the highest scoring team on the slate. So that indicates that this Arizona team, while popular, not popular enough. Same sort of deal as well over on FanDuel. Got the Arizona Diamondbacks, also by far the team most likely to be the highest scoring team on the slate, but actually project for 13% ownership as a team over on FanDuel. So I can't get away from them. Diamondbacks are my favorite team to roster overall on the slate. And it seems like you're liking them a good amount, but just your second favorite stack behind the Rangers.
Yeah, so second favorite behind Rangers is Arizona, so that is pretty clear cut. Third gets a little bit fun though. Third gets a little bit kinky, if you will, so that'll be enjoyable. How about getting to a little bit of San Diego against Javier Assad? I think there's just absolutely no ownership coming in on them at the beginning, at the top of this lineup here specifically, and we do like a lot of these cheaper pitching options, and Atlanta is going to be also popular on like all of these slates. It's just so much harder to jam some of these guys in as a complete 5-man with even the cheap pitching options. That's kind of what you're running into with the Dodgers. That's why the Dodgers are probably going to be carrying a lot of low ownership throughout this entire season. But you look at San Diego going up against Assad, not a great first outing from him, and generally somebody that I don't target a ton, but we have some serious pop that exists here with Fernando Tatis, obviously. Profar has been somewhat improved. Manny Machado has third base and shortstop eligibility. And then Jake Cronenworth, I'm starting to expect better things from him over the course of this season. I'm going to be a little bit early to some San Diego pieces, so got 11% of them. That is a pretty hefty, almost 3x stand as a stack.
Yeah. So for myself, it's kind of interesting because we just got a question from Ant604 $$ in the chat. He said thoughts on Javier Assad. And I am kind of on the same page as you, where if I'm playing a side of this game, I prefer to fade Assad and stack against him than actually play Javier Assad. I know he was really good in his first game of the season, but that was a game against the Colorado Rockies, and he was pitching at home. But this is a totally different situation. This Padres offense, I know the Padres pitching isn't nearly as good this year as it was last year. Their offense should still be very, very good, especially the top of the lineup, like you had mentioned. So I don't mind the Padres as a contrarian stack at all. Only 3% projected on. They're not one of my primary stacks, but it is a team I'm a little bit overweight to the field on. And to Ant's question, I don't have interest in Assad for this particular slate. For me, if I'm going to say my favorite contrarian offense, because we did get that question, Mr. Cool Cam, and then also BBC and Mouth 8 also asked who my favorite contrarian offense is for the slate here today. I am going to be going with, is there, by the way, is there an ownership number that I have to be below here?
No, you can do whatever you want. Again, for me, it goes to them, and then Philly is actually fourth for me.
So I am going to, all right. So if it doesn't have to be like a 1 or 3% owned offense or anything like that. The Houston Astros going up against Andrew Heaney. Heaney over the last couple of years, has there been a higher variance pitcher in baseball, especially from a DFS standpoint, Eric, than Heaney? Because when he's pitching well, his outs all come from strikeouts. So he has massive fantasy upside. But when he's going poorly, He gives up home runs. He gives up hard contact. He can't throw strikes. He often ends up falling out of games fairly early. So there's just been results all over the board for Andrew Heaney. And I don't know if you looked at his velocity from the first start of the year. Concerning. 91 miles per hour. This is a guy who a couple of years ago, when he was having the best season of his career, was throwing 93 miles per hour. And a lot of people might say, well, 91, 93, what's the difference? For baseball, 2 miles per hour on a fastball can make a really, really big impact. And yeah, he only pitched 4 2/3 innings in his first start. So could have just been attributed to his first start of the year potentially. But in DFS, where we're looking for upside, this is a guy in Andrew Heaney who allows a lot of fly balls. He's a 15.5% home run to fly ball rate for his career. We know the power that's in the Houston Astros offense. Nobody, in general, nobody, like a very small percentage of people are playing the Houston Astros against a very flammable pitcher in Andrew Heaney. So that's the contrarian stack that I like the most. It's one of my 4 core stacks. The Astros are amongst them, and they're fairly low owned.
I am kind of with you. So one thing I'm doing is doing a little bit of a boost to some of the righties. That's something that I did before this program, talking through what I wanted to do with like some secondary stacks and just trying to give the Sims a little bit of information on what I'm looking at. We got sub 100 X ISO against lefties for Andrew Heaney over the course of last season. It's been pretty consistent where he's going to shut down lefties, and there's 2 incredible lefties that generally I don't care in Alvarez and Tucker. Like they have 217 and 226 expected ISOs against lefties from last year. That's pretty damn good. But Andrew Heaney, I'm definitely going to be going at him with some of these righties, specifically Altuve, Bregman, McCormick. Always going to be another like decent one-off option from him too. 209 X ISO over 2,000 pitches last season. Just a ridiculous feast or famine situation here. It was even worse in 2022 up there with a 237 actual ISO. So, I mean, this is just a spot for me where I want to get to some of those righties. And then obviously the quality of an Alvarez and a Tucker, I'm not going to completely omit them, but I am with you. For me, it is kind of playing the role of secondary stack a little bit more, trying to target a couple of those home runs. But no doubt that there is strikeout stuff and there is blow up potential with Heaney.
We've got a question here from Snips1234. He wants to know, are we rostering the Cubbies today? The Cubs offense has looked very good to open up the year. Yu Darvish is a pitcher that you and I are on, Eric, but he is going to be somewhat popular for the purposes of this slate. So is the Cubs an offense you like getting to for leverage purposes at all?
No. And it's a little bit freaky because they outperformed what I would call some bad ballpark situations at times. And we had the one crazy win behind them game. But other than that, it's been like 15 sustained coming in at 40 degrees. And now that's kind of a ballpark upgrade going to Petco for once. Like you get some of these warmer temperature spots, San Diego, LA, Arizona at a dome or any dome that exists specifically around the entire league. Arizona sometimes open air, Miami sometimes open air, but like just saying that some of these warmer weather spots can induce more runs. We had the one game there in Wrigley, but otherwise it's been pretty negative hitting conditions for them and they've outperformed. I just definitely take the Darvish side of this one. If San Diego wants to go off, I'd be just fine with it. But the Cubs side, definitely not going to be there. So you can enjoy the profits on that one.
Got another question here from our guy BBC in chat. He wants to know, would we bet the Washington Nationals at 8-1 to have the worst record in baseball this year? And I just pulled up because I saw that he'd asked this question. So I pulled up the FanGraphs projections for the rest of the year. And it leads me to believe that that line's probably about accurate. They're only projected for 65 wins in the FanGraphs projections, which is not a great mark at all. But the problem is the Rockies are projected for 60 wins, which is also very, very terrible. And then we've also got the Chicago White Sox projected for 62 wins. So with that being in mind, you got the Nationals projected for 5 more wins than the Rockies. You got them projected for 3 more wins than the White Sox. The 8-1 line is probably about fair, but Nationals, is that a team that you'd be looking to fade and pick as the worst team in baseball this season?
No, I bet they're plus 1.5 against Blake Snell as this number has gone up, 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 up. It's a low variance ballpark. It's a good pitcher's park. Trevor Williams is somebody I'm weirdly getting to a little bit more of than I was expecting. I at least have like 8% of him. That is more than I was expecting of getting to Trevor Williams. It's just such a good ballpark to be in there. So I guess not necessarily answering the question, are they going to be one of the worst in baseball? Yeah, they probably are going to be. But for today, my lineups would indicate I am actually cheering for Trevor Williams to be semi-decent or competent in a couple of lineups, and otherwise just not a lot of interest in that game.
And then we've also got, where did it go? I guess it was deleted. I saw somebody else ask the question, but it's gone now. So neither here nor there. But I did see that there was somebody who was asking about the weather before. There is no weather concerns that are making me alter anything in lineups. I brought that up at the top, and nothing has changed since then. But Eric, are there any weather situations you have your eye on tonight?
Nope, zero,
Yeah,
which is
that's
nice.
where I'm at. I know it's weather's been a disaster for baseball lately in terms of games getting delayed and the situations with rainouts and whatnot. But today it looks like that we are sitting good from that standpoint. So no real weather concerns. As far as popular offenses go, Eric, are there any offenses picking up a lot of ownership that you're looking to be underweight to the field on?
Pull that back up here. I was just looking at the FanDuel side of things here in the top stack
So
to
there's
give
there's
people
only
some.
three offenses on DraftKings that are projected for double-digit ownership. It's the Rockies. We've already said we like them. The
Mhm.
Braves against Julio Teheran, the Rays against Tyler Anderson. It's those three
Yeah,
offenses that are super popular.
I have almost no Tampa Bay, so that makes complete sense that it's them. Again, Tyler Anderson, not a pitcher that I brought up for good reason. I don't think he's going to have a crazy good strikeout outing. For what it's worth, Prize Picks I know is at 5. I want to take a look at where Underdog was too. Was talking with Jordan Klein before the show. I liked less on that number. It's sitting at 4.5 at pretty much every sports book across the industry right now. Usually 4.5, and you're getting 5. That is kind of like an auto less play. Needs 6 to end up burning you. You get that 4, which is, plus 115 best available number, but upwards of minus 126 across the marketplace, just doing some quick shopping over at Odd Shopper. But I am very much on board with Tyler Anderson, less than 2.5 earned runs. This is a guy that just induces soft fly ball contact. That's kind of been his MO throughout his entire big league career. In the last 2 seasons, 28.5% hard hit percentage, 32.3% hard hit percentage. But the main thing is you see, oh shit, he has a 27.4% fly ball rate, 33.9% fly ball rate. He's done a great job at avoiding the long ball, great job at avoiding things that hurt other pitchers. He has no strikeout stuff really whatsoever. 18.9% K rate last season, had a high for his career of 22.4% back in 2017. But overall, a pitcher I think can be successful against this righty heavy Tampa Bay lineup that I don't have a ton of interest in trying to back today.
Yeah, so it's actually the exact same for me. I only have 4% raise stack, so somewhere around a third of what the field has. By the way, a lot of people in chat really liking the new interface on the Sims. And yeah,
Looks
I
so
agree. I
good.
also like how easy it is to sort by individual players, so it's useful for us for content as well. But yeah, as you guys could see on screen, we have a new UI change, so it's prettier looking on screen now as you guys are seeing all that now. But yeah, same for me, Tampa Bay Rays, and it's not to say that it's like the worst spot in the world against them, but they are facing a ground ball pitcher who I do kind of question what the upside is. The Rays also don't have the best offense overall
Yeah.
in the world. So I just think they're too popular at their
Yeah.
ownership. If this was a team that was like 5% owned, I'd think, all right, that's about appropriate. But a lot of the field wants to get to this Tampa Bay Rays team that I just don't really think is the best spot on the slate.
Yeah, for what it's worth, you said ground ball pitcher. I know you meant fly ball pitcher, but
Oh,
he's
yeah,
a
my
weak
bad.
fly ball pitcher. So just wanted to make sure that covered on that one because it's the opposite. He just induces fly ball, but it's like soft pop fly, ridiculously good at keeping it in the yard fly ball contact.
Yeah, Tyler Anderson's career numbers, and particularly his recent numbers, have not really been a guy who's very homer prone at all. So you had mentioned some of the soft contact. Last year, he had a 9.6% home run to fly ball rate. The year before, it was 6.4%. And then before that, it was 12.2%. In San Francisco, is 6.1%. If you look at the overall numbers for his career, you might think like, hey, but he gave up home runs early in his career. Yeah, he was pitching in Colorado then. Since he left Colorado, it has really changed how many home runs he's given up. And he's been a guy who's just been difficult to hit home runs against for the last couple of years, even though he isn't a guy who generates a lot of strikeouts. So not really a team that I'm getting myself to very much exposure to. Other spots that I'm kind of preferring on the slate. Any other offenses, Eric, that are important to you on this slate, whether it be a mid-range offense we haven't talked to or maybe a contrarian one?
Uh, my Minnesota Twins to a certain extent, like it's not, I don't like the way our lineup rolls out against lefties. We didn't talk about Paxton whatsoever. I think he's okay. Minnesota is going to strike out against everybody with this version of the lineup. And Carlos Santana, who's generally good at avoiding them this season, not so much, 26.7%. He's been sent down to the 8 hole here next to Austin Martin, who I don't even know who that was until like 2 days ago. But Manuel Margot,
the car.
It's just ridiculous. Him, Correa, Jeffers, always a good, decent catching option to be getting to there. Byron Buxton, Jose Miranda is back with the team. I'd like pieces of that top 5 to get to against Paxton, who I think there's a path for them being able to utilize some leverage or being able to utilize some of their skill set going up against a pitcher who against righties just has had issues like throughout his career. And then a 218 ISO in 2023, 165 expected ISO. But I don't want to go out of my way to go say that I'm just like jamming them by any means, but they are kind of making a nice secondary stack to reduce some of the ownership in some of these Arizona and Texas lineups.
So let's just put a nice bow on this for everybody, and then we will make sure there weren't any questions we missed. We'll do some home run picks. I'll also tell you guys about the Masters promo we have going on that started today. But I have 4 offenses that I have double-digit exposure to, so just want to really make sure that I clarify at the end of this, the teams that I'm prioritizing in large field tournaments. Number 1 to me is the Arizona Diamondback stack, like on a pedestal. I have so much more exposure to them than anybody else. And then the other 3 stacks I have double-digit exposure to are the San Francisco Giants, the Houston Astros, and the Texas Rangers.
Love.
For yourself, Eric, what are just the offenses that you were really prioritizing in case anybody kind of gets, lost in it while we're talking about this slate as a whole?
Yep. Arizona, Atlanta. Both of those are just like phenomenal ones to be getting to. But Texas is my number 1 out of everybody. So Texas, number 1, number 2, Arizona, number 3, Atlanta, number 4, San Diego. Talked about them earlier as well. They've come down a tiny, tiny bit for me, sitting at 9% total stack share. And then it is a lot of like spreading it out amongst Philly, amongst some of these other high offenses or high upside offenses.
And then I also want to let people know about our PGA deal that started today. Eric, are you aware that the Masters is this week?
I am very aware because I spent infinity hours on a golf article today. Jeff Ulrich, shout out one of our former dudes. The guy is an absolute beast because the thing that I am trying to fire up where I just break down the entire golf course and everything else, he does a phenomenal job a lot of other places. But I am very much a big fan of what he's done after the fact, seeing how much work it is. But guess what? It can be so much less work for you between that article and then promo code MASTERS, 40% off a monthly PGA DFS package. This is the week, friends. There aren't a ton of golfers to break down. 90 guys that we have in the field? Pretty easy to go through what we've got in front of us here. But the Sims is going to do such a good job of taking all of that concern out for you, helping you get the best projections in the entire industry. Yes, we have worked tirelessly to backtest these things. Everybody is putting gobs of work in there, specifically our guy Brian. So everybody check this out, promo code MASTERS.
Yeah, well, I didn't know you were. I wasn't trying to put the ad read on you or anything, but Eric did it better than I could do myself there. So yeah, if you guys want to sign up for our PGA data to get access to the Master, you could sign up for a data monthly package. You get yourself 40% off. You want to sign up for a Sims package, you get 40% off either the base Sims package or the Max Sims package. Sign up using the link we have below. Promo code MASTERS already loaded in is going to get you 40% off your first month of a PGA package there. So go check it out. There is $1 million to first place over on DraftKings, and I hope I win it. If I don't win it, I hope Eric wins it. If Eric doesn't win it, then I hope one of you guys win it. Fair?
That was well done too.
Right? Is that a good pecking order?
Juan Soto, all rise. The Yankees. Let's go. I hate the Yankees, but I love them today because I bet them.
Is that a prelude to your dong pick?
No, well, he just went yard. He just did it.
So you should pick him as your dong pick, and then you can victory.
Oh yeah, Juan Soto to go yard.
So as far as your dong pick for today, Eric, we'll close it out by saying, which player are you picking to hit a home run today? The only caveat, which we're going to carry over from last year, you're not allowed to be a pussy. You're not allowed to pick players from Coors Field because that is kind of cheating. No taking Christian Walker and being like, hey, here's a guy who's like plus 200 at sportsbooks to homer today. No. We're going to consider that cheating. Eric, who are you picking to homer today? And the only caveat, just can't be a Coors Field bat.
Jake Cronenworth.
Jake Cronenworth. All right. Let me see. Oh my God. All my exposure. So the way I was looking at it, I was like, I'm going to pick my most rostered hitter who's not from the Diamondbacks. And then I go ahead and I look at my exposures like, all right, well, my most rostered hitter is Ketel Marte, then Christian Walker, then Eugenio Suarez. Like, well, there's a lot of Diamondbacks guys here. So I'm gonna have to scroll down in the Sims tool a little bit here to find my most rostered hitter that I think is live to Homer, who is not from that game. And I am going to land on, which way do I want to go? All right, so here's a guy that typically is considered a big platoon splits guy, but is actually a better hitter against right-hand pitching. I think people realize. Wilmer Flores. Wilmer Flores is somebody who, for the longest time when he was on the Mets, they would only have him start against left-hand pitching. But you look at his numbers, you'd be like, but wait, this is a guy who's actually like a league average to above average hitter against righties as well. Wilmer Flores has a good amount of power. He's got a great matchup against Trevor Williams as well. We were talking before, Eric, about how the San Francisco Giants, a team that I'm getting exposure to as a stack, and a big part of that stack, Wilmer Flores. And also, of all the players that we have that have pinch hit risk on the Giants, something that pops up from time to time, if Wilmer Flores is starting against a righty, you don't have to worry about him getting pinch hit for at all. So Wilmer Flores is a very, very popular one-off in my lineups, also showing up in a lot of Giant stacks. So Wilmer Flores, that is my dong of the day. Any final thoughts here before we sign off, Eric?
Just fun to talk baseball with you again. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hit the like button. It's fun to have a new sport here, and one that obviously this is what brought me to DFS in the first place, was MLB DFS. Seeing it on a poster board at Dodger Stadium in like 2015, I was like, oh, I should try out this DFS thing, this DraftKings thing. So I love it. It's got a special place in my heart. Hopefully you guys can hear that from the analysis.
Guys, thank you very much for watching. If you've not done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and soon we should be able to get a baseball over on playback, hopefully within, the next month or so or something like that. So there are going to be times where we do playback shows for baseball, but for tonight, we don't have anything to show at all on playback, because not only do we not have access to baseball, but there's no NBA games today. So guys, hope you enjoy the NCAA championship game. If you do want to hang out and play back, we can leave the stream going. If you guys just want to sweat the games and chat amongst yourselves, that's certainly an option for over there, but I'm not going to be able to show baseball games there quite yet. But guys, thank you very much for watching. Have a great night. See you back here tomorrow where there's going to be a basketball slate. So peace out.